Hi guys, Clem here again from online flooring store, Talkin Flooring. You know, a lot of you come to our website because you want to do stuff DIY. So a lot of questions come to us around the installation of hybrid flooring. So here's 4 things that you should probably consider before you go and you start installing your hybrid floor. So the first thing to do that you want to do is make sure you've got all of your materials together. And that you do an inspection of your product before and as you're laying it. What you're going to need mostly to lay a hybrid floor, you're going to need like a metal straight edge. You'll need a sharp knife, as most of your cutting is going to be done with a knife. You cut a hybrid floor by scoring the product just through the wear layer, putting it across your knee and snapping it, and then cutting through the wear layer on the back, so through the underlay on the back. Now, it doesn't really matter how thick the hybrid floor is, that like even the 9.7mm Terramata resi plank. Some friends of mine did the job when their 12-year-old daughter, as part of her homeschooling, went and laid a bunch of that. She had no problems with it at all. So it's not a difficult thing to do. So you'll need your straight edge, you'll need some pencils, you'll need your knife. And a jigsaw is not going to hurt your cause either, because you can use that for taking small parts off a board where you haven't got the pressure to snap it properly, and doing little intricate cutouts on the boards as well. You'll need your tape measure, but really beyond that, you'll need a hammer or a mallet sort of arrangement, and you'll need to make some little tapping blocks, which you take the product, take an offcut, and slice it in half down the center of the board, so you've got your male and your female joins. And if you ever have to tap the boards in on the side, you simply, if you're going into a female joint, you take your tapping block with a male joint, lock it in, and hit that. Don't hit the product and risk damaging your joining system. So just assemble those things you're going to need. Have a look at your product, and any boards that might be damaged, put them to the side and mark the damaged area with a pencil. Don't freak out about it, because those damaged boards you're going to be able to use, and they do happen, right? And every supplier expects, as a certain amount of boards are just going to be damaged through transit, through the product moving around from one country to another. But don't freak out about it. Those boards are still usable, because you're going to start and finish runs where sides have to come off. You're doing, cutting the boards for the ends. All of that stuff is usable. It's not throwaway at all. So just put those boards to the side, mark the area clearly so you know what can and can't be used. And use a pencil, don't use a pen, because the pencil will come off. So after you've done that, you're going to want to take this, you're going to make the decision about whether you're going to take your skirting boards off and replace them, or whether you're going to use a Scotia around the perimeter. Now, a Scotia is like a quad mold. It's convex instead of concave instead of convex. But it basically allows you to hide the expansion gap. If you choose not to take your skirtings off, you just lay the board up to an expansion gap width to the end of the floor and towards the skirting, and then you pop the Scotia on afterwards. The best result is always to take the skirting off and put them back on, as that looks more natural. The Scotia tends to be a bit of an afterthought. Scotia's easier to use. It's easier to put in place. It's easier. But once it's done, you've always got that aesthetic you've got to consider. So you've got to weigh up the time and effort and frustration of pulling your skirtings off, as opposed to using Scotia. First time I did my house, we used Scotia. Was not happy. So the 2 times I did it after that, I removed the skirting. One little tip was, I started at one part of the house and I worked my way around the house, and I numbered sequentially each skirting board as I went around the house. That way, I didn't have a pile of skirting put away in my garage, and then when I go to put it back on, I didn't know what went where. It literally just follow the numbers all the way around the house. So that's a pretty simple way to do it. And to remove your skirting boards, it's not easy. It's not difficult. You basically just need a sharp knife, cut where the skirting sort of comes up to the wall, cut the paint there, and then take a pair of butter knives and just wedge them down in behind and just gently start to pry and work your way up. Don't try and pull it all the way up, but just create some space, move up a bit, create some more space, then go back and take it out a bit further, and eventually as you go along, it will start to pull free. So that's a nice simple way to do it. It probably doesn't take as long as you'd imagine. And look, hypothetically, let's say it took you half a day to do. Well, you do that once and you've got the floor you like looking at for the rest of your life. So the next thing you're going to want to consider is your subfloor. So every supplier has written into their installation guide the tolerance that your subfloor has to be within to lay that product on that subfloor. Typically, you'll see 3 millimeters over 2 meters. And it varies differently for each product. So there's no one set standard. The challenge is that the standard that the suppliers recommend and the standard that's required for flooring is very different to the Australian standard for laying concrete floors. The one for laying concrete floors is much more lax, which means most flooring that's going down requires some form of subfloor preparation. And I remember years ago working in both retail and then in wholesale, a lot of customers, end users, get a shock because they think, hey, it's a new home, it should have a new slab. It does, but it's done to a different standard to what the flooring requires. So it becomes your responsibility to go and ensure that slab is flat. So it may, one thing you're going to want to do is take a straight edge across that floor, and you're going to want to find out areas that dip and areas that are higher. And an easy way to do that is you can go down to Bunnings and buy these little plastic spacers that are 2 millimeters thick. Have a few of those and take a straight edge. And, if you can get a 2 meter straight edge, great. But move it around your floor and take that packing spacer and see if you can shift it under there. And if you can't, you're okay. If you've got areas where the floor is rocking, that means you've got a high point. If you're suspending it, you've got this, and you can put the packer under, you've got a low point. So you have to work out how to deal with that. Whether you hire a floor grinder and you grind the high points down, or you use a floor leveler to lift up the lower areas. All of that is a process that floor preparation specialists spend a lot of time learning and understanding. And I'm not talking about an installer who comes in and just spreads a couple of bags of ardent around the floor. No, the guys who come in and do it properly, who they come in and they cut the concrete, and then they cut off the high points and fill the low points. Because if you just try and fill it, you've got to fill to the highest point, and it can mean you're using a massive amount of filler. Alternately, if you're trying to grind everything down to the lowest point, it can mean that you're grinding off a lot of your slab. So it's best to take a best of both worlds approach, and only probably someone who's been doing it for a long time has a skill to do it. Now that's worst case. In a lot of cases, it's small, and quite a lot of cases it's not required at all. But you do need to ascertain that before you go down that road. You also want to make sure that the floor is free of imperfections and debris. So you want to get around and you want to, sweep up, get rid of any little stones or anything that are on your floor. With hybrid flooring, if you've got divots in the floor, like say you're pulling out some carpet smooth edge and you pull it out and the nails take out clumps of concrete, not really a big deal, because the flooring is rigid enough to sort of bridge that, and it's not going to bother you, and it's typically around the edge of the floor anyway, so it's not a biggie. But you're just going to want to make sure that too, if it's a new home, your concrete's cured properly, that you're not going onto something that's completely wet. If you do go into a new home, it's not a bad idea to throw a plastic sheet down first, a builder's plastic sheet. It'll cost you a few bucks. But at the end of the day, a lot of suppliers now are starting to want that in their installations. They feel that the water coming up from new slabs or from wet slabs is affecting the back of their products. Whether that's true or not isn't the point. If a supplier has in their warranty statement, in their installation guide, that to keep your warranty you have to do this, then do that. And don't ask the question, just do it. It's not going to hurt your floor, but at the same time it could save you grief down the track. Now, the last thing is you're going to want to, before you start installing, you're going to want to measure your space, and you're going to want to look at where you're starting and where you're finishing. And typically what you do is you measure that space, then divide it by the width of your floorboard. So let's say you've got a space that's 10 meters wide and you've got a board that's 185 millimeters wide. You're going to divide that 10 meters or 10,000 by 185 because 10 meters is 10,000 millimeters. That fraction you've got left over is going to be the percentage of a board that is not a full board. So if you end up with a number that says 0.67, well, you've got 0.67 of a board left over. So how are you going to counter that from one side to another? You probably don't want to have 0.67 of a board and then this little bit cut off, although that might not be a bad thing. You, like say the number was 0.3, you don't necessarily want a third of a board against the wall. So what you might do is, rather than starting with a full board, you might dock this board and then absorb that across the boards at either end, so that you're not having a full board on one side and a little portion of a board on another, that you remove that little portion of a board by taking a bit off the board on that side and evening it out, so that you might have two boards that are almost full boards, but you've docked both sides along the wall. That will help you to keep the floor balanced. The other thing you're going to want to do is go through before the job and look at things like door jambs and how you're going to deal with getting in and around door jambs. Now, it also may mean that you're looking and you've measured the widths, but that then puts a particular wall or a door jam in a particularly bad way to install it. So you're just going to have to spend a bit of time working this out in your head and come up with the best solution for it. Sometimes it's choosing the less bad way, but sometimes it also, you roll the dice and everything goes your way. But then after you've done that, you've done your walk around, go and try and identify things that are going to be problems before you get there. Door jambs are a classic because you want to try and get the product in and back so you're undercutting the door jam, and you want to get the product under the door jam and then pull it back into the flooring. And the amount of board you've got to do that with is sometimes critical and makes that more or less difficult than other times. So, that walking through your house, identifying areas that are more difficult than others to start with will sort of help you down the track. And even if you can do that a couple of days in advance, sometimes thinking about it over that time or not thinking about it, you get this bulb of, oh well, that's how I deal with it, just in the middle of the night or something, write it down and keep going. But once you've done that, you'll basically lay your floor, and then you'll just put your skirtings back on and you'll have your lovely floor for life. So any questions on that, guys, you're always welcome to call us or just send us an inquiry or find us at onlineflooringstore.com.au. Cheers.